think we are up. Welcome everybody to round 12 of Footy Rivals.
Footy
it's
Rivals,
our sixth
yes.
episode.
I believe it's our sixth. That's what I've written down.
We welcome myself, your host Ryan, and co-host Justin.
Happy to be back.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week. That's annoying. Forgot to do that.
It has been an interesting week.
It's the year of firing coaches.
Do we start at the top where we don't really want to go from?
No,
we've avoided talking about Brendan Bolton much because what else is there to say?
We don't want to go into it too much because, really, the first 3, maybe 4 episodes, we were constantly talking about Carlton.
Yeah, they're topical, and that's excusable. But at the same time, I feel like what more can be said about the situation that hasn't already been said?
I still personally think it's the wrong decision.
Yeah,
but it's been made. He'll get a gig somewhere else, no doubt. He's definitely got a mind for footy.
I think so.
He's
got a passion for the industry.
I think his biggest downfall, it was not necessarily the amount of losses and how bad the losses were, but it was the poor communication from the club to the public about their situation. Because what you've got to remember with Carlton is when Bolton came on board, or since Bolton's came on board, he's effectively overturned the list. I think 56 player changes have been made
been huge
in the 3 period, trade periods and draft periods that he's been there. Right?
Yeah,
he's effectively started a club like a brand new expansion club over the course of 3 years, but without any concessions.
Yes,
that. In my view, that's pretty much exactly is what has happened with Carlton, and the board and the higher ups haven't helped him. In this situation via their lack of communication to the public about what is actually happening. And instead of facing the adversity in the media and actually communicating to the media, what's this, we're sticking by him. If they had come out, throughout the year, any time this year, and not just gone, we're sticking with him to the end of the year, we're going to stick with him until the end of next year.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, all of that media pressure, gone.
Goes away. It's funny that you mentioned that and the communication from the higher ups, because the one thing that piqued my interest from the press conference that he had with Kane Little and Mark Lejudice, I think it is. Lejudice. The one thing that piqued my interest is Lejudice kept talking about we've done everything we said we were going to, and it's like, well, what did you say you were going to do? Because only 2 weeks ago you said Brendan Bolton's safe, so you didn't back that up. But even outside of that, what did you actually say you were going to do then? Because if you've done everything you said you were going to do, you're promising a very lowball offer to your fans.
Well, also, if you've done everything you promised to do, why is your coach now being sacked for doing exactly what you said he was going to do?
Exactly.
That doesn't make any sense.
And that was absolute garbage. The only other thing I had to take out of that is that they were forced to defend the Stocker trade, and man, that was awkward viewing.
Do you know what? I haven't actually minded Stocker this year.
I don't hate Stocker either.
I think he's been playing pretty well.
I think he's been fine, and what they said about him personally in his performance is accurate. He's been good. Yeah. But when they sat there and said, we've won this trade, or we think we've won this trade,
you don't know that yet.
We don't know that. But we're all skeptical.
In fact, you're not going to know that until 10 years down the track.
Yes, it'll take years. But the one thing about him saying they've done everything that they said they've done.
No, I personally think here's an interesting thing with was it Mark Lejudice or whatever it is?
I've been calling him Logadici all week.
He has overseen now, or he has been a part of 3 Carlton coach sackings.
Yeah, was it Malthouse?
So he was instrumental in Malthouse sacking. He's clearly been instrumental in Bolton being sacked. And he wasn't in the chairman's position when Ratton was moved on, but he was
part of the board.
On the board.
Yeah,
that's right.
He was part of the board. Yeah, so he's.
I definitely would be calling his position into question. And when they did ask him, it
was an unequivocal no. It was, I will not be considering my position. And it's like, maybe you should.
That's right.
I heard Chris Judd copping flack in the week, and rightfully so. There's pressure on everyone, but I don't think Judd or Kane Little are the two guys you're looking at.
Chris Judd's held himself pretty well. He's unequivocally backed Bolton in. There's been no doubt or hesitation with his words in backing Bolton in, regardless of what's happened over the course of the weekend.
Yes.
We do know that it actually happened pretty much directly after the loss, I think, over the weekend. Yeah. So this is a very sudden...
I feel like Chris Judd's been the most transparent of them.
100%,
with the fans. Yeah. He's been pretty realistic.
For people calling him out, you're being...
I think that's...
It's a bit wrong to go through and do so, but... That's Carlton's situation.
It is what it is. We move on, and Teague takes over as the interim coach, David Teague, and we'll see how he goes. He's got half a year to audition for the top job if he wants it.
And it's a really hard audition.
Yeah, it's
with
a tough
Carlton's
audition.
list, unfortunately.
Yeah, but we move on. Should we get to our questions?
Yes. Let's start. We didn't start that. Let us do.
Usually we would, but that was hot news, and we've done it, and we move on.
Let's go.
Question from me to you. I said we're moving on, but I'm somewhat staying with the topic, but somewhat not.
Right.
I just want you to tell me why Ross Lyon would prefer to coach Carlton over Fremantle. I don't believe that that's true.
No, I don't
for the record, I don't believe that that's actually happening. I think he does literally just enjoy the fish and chips in Carlton.
He just played. They just played a game in Melbourne.
And they stayed in Melbourne because before the bye, Fremantle hold an event, a team bonding event every year before the bye. Just after their final game before the bye. So, of course, they're still in Melbourne. All hypothetical. Yeah. I don't believe it's happening. But I want you to tell me what in anyone's right mind, particularly Ross Lyons, would make him on the field. I mean, there might be reasons off the field, who knows? But on the field, what would make him want to take a Carlton job?
You're taking away my own... I was going to use off-field stuff. You just took it... I don't know.
Okay, I'll have a think about it. Is there any singular reason that you can think that he would want to coach Carlton instead of Fremantle?
Maybe.
I'll give you off-field. Go with the off-field stuff.
I'll have a think about it. I'll give you a complete picture. My question to you...
Lay it on me.
...is this. Charlie Dixon... returns to the SANFL this week.
He does this week, yeah.
Which then prompts him to return to the AFL in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
Port Adelaide have the bye this week, so he might return next week.
Quite a fortunate time to return.
Might return next week, if not the week after, depending on how his match fitness is.
Yes.
He's been out for 10 months.
Yes.
Him coming back into the Port Adelaide side... Do Port Adelaide make the top 8? And are they a premiership threat with him in the team?
Okay.
I want you to argue that they are.
Okay. All right. Which is actually terrifying because the side that they might punt out is my own Dockers.
Possibly.
So, yeah. Okay.
Could be Adelaide, could be the Lions as well.
There's a few teams. I'd say there's probably 2 or 3 spots up for grabs and about 5 teams vying for it.
I don't know. I think 5th to 8th are vulnerable of dropping out. So that's Richmond, Brisbane, Adelaide, and Fremantle.
Fremantle's 9th.
Oh, who's
Port Adelaide would be 8th. It is the most Fremantle thing on the planet to have arguably their best win, well, unequivocally their best win in 5 years, and still drop down on the ladder. How did this... Going into the bye, so you can't even make it up next week.
You can't. It's going to take 3 weeks to get proper positions.
That was upsetting. That really took away from the euphoria of the win.
Well, speaking of Western Australian teams, it's been obviously a big talking point throughout the week. West Coast goes to the SCG. They have not won there in 20 years, since 1999.
Oh, really?
Was their last win at the SCG.
I had no idea about that stat.
In, I think, 13 or 18 attempts or something to that accord. And at the SCG, they've only won 3 or 4 times.
And they've won 2 premierships in the time that they have not won a game there.
That's right. They have beaten Sydney.
Years.
They just haven't beaten Sydney in Sydney.
Yeah. But not at the SCG.
They've not beaten Sydney at the SCG since 99.
Wow.
Can they do it this year?
Yeah, they can.
Keeping in mind, last year, Sydney was the first of their losses in that 3-loss streak they went after their 10-win streak.
Yeah, 10 straight. Okay.
Can they beat Sydney?
Yeah, they can. They can. They played damn good.
Do they beat Sydney?
Yeah, I think they do. Although not convincingly.
Yeah.
And that won't be because the Eagles have played bad football. That'll be because Sydney's playing pretty good footy.
They are.
I like what Sydney's doing. You know, I can't remember who they pushed last week. Geelong.
Yes.
They come within 4 goals of Geelong, and they're not losing by much.
And it was really only in the last sort of quarter that they fell off of it.
Look, they can knock West Coast off without question. They have what it takes to knock them off. I mean, especially when you take out Shannon Hearn from that side. I mean, that's a big loss. It's your skipper.
Yeah, it's a huge loss.
So I'm going to end up, when we go through the games, my tip's going to lie with West Coast. But I don't think it's out of the question that Sydney keeps that streak alive, but I'd like to see it beaten just because it's fun to snap a streak.
Speaking of tips, I just want to touch on this very quickly. We didn't get our certainties wrong last week, did we?
No, we didn't. We did not.
Adelaide came up for me, luckily.
I forgot who my certainty was mid-weekend because I tipped you. I texted you, during the week, and I was like, oh, thank God, Port Adelaide's destroying the Saints, and I went back and watched it. My tip was actually Essendon over Carlton. We both got up, so no punishment.
It was skin of my teeth. I got off on that one.
Yeah, that was tight.
that. Going back, if Sydney do beat West Coast, okay, I don't think it's going to derail West Coast too much.
No, I don't think so.
But can Sydney still make finals? Coming up to 4 wins. They're still only 2 to 3 wins behind the 8, with half the year to go still.
So they'd be on 4 and 8 would be their record.
They would be, yes.
I don't think they could make finals. I don't think they could. I'd love to see one of those bottom teams come up, because some of them are actually playing really good footy still.
Yeah, I think if Sydney continue to play good footy or consistent footy like they're getting towards, they might, because some of those teams that are vying for the 8 may not be as consistent as what Sydney can be.
I see them having the capability to make a charge to finish around 11th.
Possibly,
11th to 10th.
I think they'll
maybe string together 3 wins in a row somewhere and then get a bit of a reality check. I don't think they can make finals, but I would like to see them have a red-hot crack. And if it can come down to the last round and be like, are they going to actually do it?
It'd go back to sort of that Richmond 3 and 10.
Yeah, it would. It would.
When they came back and,
they were 3 and 10. Sydney's only 3 and 8.
I think they were 3 and 10 or 3 and 7 or something like that. I'm not sure. But, it'd just generate a lot of interest within Sydney itself.
I think it would. Hey, one guy I wanted to ask you about today, tonight, is David Myers. Do you see the story about the self-axing?
I read the headline. I didn't know who it was, though.
David Myers
I actually read the story.
Dropped himself back to the VFL to get an Essendon young guy coming through the midfield. Completely selfless act.
Mm-hmm.
I really rated it. I thought that was really good. But it prompted me to think, where are Essendon's young players? And where do you rate them?
How old is David Myers?
It's actually a good question, but he's one of their senior players. He's actually in their leadership group.
Yeah, but if he's... I wouldn't have thought he'd be 30.
Possibly not. I would say maybe high 20s.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a strange move. Yeah. Only because does he think he's not going to be there for their next premiership push? Because if that's the case, then I understand him dropping himself and letting the young... guys come up because he thinks in time they'll probably replace him to push for the premiership. If that's the case, should he not be listed?
Well, that's the thing it raises, isn't it? I mean, and that's the big call he's made on himself. He did go back and tell Worsfold. I believe he told Worsfold he wanted to go back to the VFL to find some form himself.
Yeah, I don't mind the move. I applaud the move. Actually, it's a very self-aware move as to what his position in the team is, where the team is itself as well.
Yeah,
I wonder whether the Essendon Footy Group has had some hard discussions throughout the week or throughout the following weeks and reassess where they are as a club in terms of pushing for finals. They thought they were going to be there this year.
Yeah, they did.
They're very clearly not.
No.
At least not premiership contending this year. They might
if they make it, they're one of those 7th to 8th teams.
It's very interesting. I don't mind players doing it, but it depends on what the reason is. I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's good, but it did prompt me to think what do you make of what young player are they going to bring in? I mean, they've got the bye this week, don't they? So we can't say they've made an immediate in or anything, but like, who do they even bring in? Like, which young kid do they bring in to go like? Is it Irving Mosquito that just comes in and has a run around and has a go?
I don't know Essendon's list well enough to be able to tell you that, to be honest.
But I feel like it's already a player that's in the 22 that's just going to be moved in the midfield more. Maybe McGrath just plays a little more midfield time.
I hope McGrath does.
Yeah,
he needs to be.
And that's the obvious one to me. I don't actually know how much midfield time he's playing at the moment. So if anyone knows that he's playing predominantly midfield minutes
last year, and I think he's still going in between the two. I think moving forward, McGrath goes into the midfield because they were talking him up all preseason. Yeah, having a bigger tank, using his bigger body now.
Because his second year was not bad, but a shade underwhelming from his first year.
And his first year was wasn't, compared to other first round, draft picks and everything, it was pretty underwhelming itself as well.
Yeah, he did win the Rising Star, but the class didn't really put its hand up to challenge him too much. I'm interested to see where they go from that. And what it does for David Myers going forward, because it's extremely selfless, super admirable.
It is very interesting to see what comes of it in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one to watch. Another thing I wanted to... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, because if his reason is to find form, what if he doesn't find form? Yeah. He's effectively banished himself to the VFL.
And from there, as a list manager, you're looking at that going, well, if you're not finding any form... and
until there's an injury for him to force his way back in, or he actually does find really good form to force his way back in, there is no reason for him to come back into the team because from now on.
Really hoping that doesn't happen and he does find
it's a bit of a... It's a really tricky thing to get around.
Potentially is where it's at. One thing I did want to ask you about, because we talked about them last week. Because that stopwatch are bad. We talked about them last week, the Dogs and the trade rumours, and saying that Isaac Smith and the targets of Smith and Martin. Martin particularly was good. Smith, don't understand it. Got another trade rumour for the Dogs this week, and it's your forward, Jack Darling.
That's just not going to happen, though.
It struck me as something that had potential and was good from the Dogs, but I'm with you. It just strikes me as something that just doesn't 100%.
Happen. That's exactly Jack Darling is exactly the player that the Dogs need, but I can't see Darling leaving.
I tried to make hypothetical reason, because I'm with you. I don't believe it's going to happen, but I tried to make hypothetical reason as to how it could happen.
Yeah,
and the Dogs do have some trade assets that maybe, say, the Eagles miss on Tim Kelly. They feel like they need a midfielder. You can get good quality guys for Jack Darling. Do they feel like, hey, Oscar Allen and guys like that are coming through, we trade him, we get a really good midfielder because he's too hot and cold?
No.
Is it something that the Eagles even contemplate?
I wouldn't even contemplate that, only because Jack Darling is in prime age, right? Yeah. Oscar Allen comes in
Kennedy's
to replace...
getting on,
Kennedy will be lucky. I think maybe next year will be his last year.
Yeah. He's really in those years where he's not... You can see that his output still really good, but
is down.
Yeah.
You're right. He is still very good, but it's not the same output as what it was last year or the year before or anything like that. No, it would be unless Jack Darling was to come to the club to seek the trade. I can't see that because key position players are much more valuable than midfielders.
I agree.
And let's be fair, West Coast midfield isn't bad.
No, they don't necessarily need to go. They can rely on what they've got.
Bringing in an extra midfielder and losing Jack Darling out of the key position forward position makes their list worse.
Yes, yeah. I did... Thankfully, I enjoy the idea from the Dogs, at least, though, that they would go after someone who can sit in a key position.
Well,
and what prompted is they want Norton playing defence.
Yeah, he is someone... Why would you want Norton playing defence?
Well, I mean, he was drafted as a defender, and I think he's got really real capacity. Forward. I think he's been hot and cold. I think he's had some really good games, and then some that I've
but he's a second-year player.
That's also
thing.
that. Like, taking on some of the best defenders in the AFL.
I would much rather... put a player who can play forward in the forward line, then make him... Anyone can be a defender.
Yeah.
You can't... It's really hard to be a forward.
Defenders are easier to find than forwards, yes.
I mean, you only need to look at Liam Jones. You go back a decade, Chris Tarrant.
Ah, yeah, okay, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's very, very easy to make a defender, especially from a forward who knows the forward craft and everything like that. It's very easy to actually make a defender who can read the play.
It's hard to find a forward, especially with a mark as good as his. It's so hard to really good pair of hands. Yeah, so...
I want to ask you this. Melbourne have some really big ins this week.
They do have some big potential injuries because they're the Monday game.
Well, they have their defenders back.
May and Lever are back in. And so is there were others that are really
there are others that are very important to them.
Yeah.
Is Melbourne out of the finals race, even though they've now got their defence back?
This game will tell us that, I think. I think if they lose this game, look, let's.
What happens if Collingwood loses 2 in a row?
Then they need to start questioning their top 4 hopes. You know, they've lost Beams likely for the season now.
Yep. I think he returns finals.
I don't think, as talented as their midfield is and they can turn it on any time, I don't actually think they're as good as people think they are. Like, they're rated next to the great West Coast and Brisbane Lions midfields and stuff, and you see the comparisons and you're like, no.
They've been patchy. Like, over the last month and a half to 2 months, they've been patchy. They've been lucky to grind out wins against lesser opponents.
Yeah.
They weren't so lucky on the weekend.
No, they certainly were not. But I think this is the game that tells us if Melbourne can or can't. And to be fair, last week actually could have been that game because Melbourne really needed to beat Adelaide.
Melbourne should have been in that game. Do you know, I was sitting there watching last week. Max Gawn takes a mark with about a minute left. And he's taken a shot from about 50 metres out. Adelaide were up. And I was nervous because it was my certainty.
Oh, yeah, right, of course.
Right. Yeah, and I was just like, nah, Max Gawn's going to miss this. He can't.
Yeah.
He's not a good set shot.
He never really has been, has he?
No, he can't do a set shot under pressure. And that's his downfall.
Yeah.
However, when Wiedemann comes in, right, takes a grab, straight in front, mind you, only about 30, 35 metres out, I'm like, Wiedemann's a good shot. He's got this.
I thought he had it.
I cannot believe he missed that shot.
Yeah, and I felt so bad for him.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I felt so gutted. That could have been the game that told us they're not actually playing finals because they really should have won it and they should be on, what are they on? 3 wins at the moment?
They
or 4?
have 3 wins, yeah.
3 wins.
So they're equal with Sydney at the moment.
See, if they were 4 and 7 and then they beat
It's a different
Collingwood,
conversation. It's 5
and they go to
7.
5 and 7 and you're like, you're not far off just being above 500. And
so let's say
sometimes that's all that matters is being above the even ledger.
This week. I don't know who their next 5 is, but
no
so they got Collingwood this week.
I think
if they win it, they go 4 and 8. Yeah. If they win their next 2 games after that, they're 6 and 8. At 4 and 8, we're going probably not. But if they get to 6 and 8, do we go? Well, maybe.
Well, it does depend on results of other teams that are going to be around that mark. But if there's another team that in the time that they've won 3 in a row, there's another team that's gone 1 and 2. Game on.
Yeah.
There's game on. There's enough games to
could be very interesting to see that unfold. Actually,
I think that too. I'm going to be very intrigued to see where they go with this game, particularly with those defenders back.
Yeah,
Lever and May are very good players and could make a huge difference for them.
I got another 2 things that I want to go through before we get through the games. I don't know if you've got any other pressing things. One of the most pressing things this weekend and over the bye rounds is the AFL umpires are going back to 4 umpires system. Yeah. However, it's still only the 3 positions on the ground. So they're basically operating with a bench.
Yeah.
They trialled it in the NAB Cup.
Yes, they
or
did.
the JLT series.
Yeah.
I should say. We'll be calling
the Wizard Homelands Cup.
We'll be calling it the Ansett Cup and stuff still. Good decision?
Non-decision for me.
Because it's going to... What it is actually going to do as well is some umpires are going to be umpiring 2 matches over the weekend.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe a good decision. I don't really have much scope on it because to me it's going to be one of the things that doesn't, and I haven't had complaints about the umpires like a lot of people this year. I don't actually think they've been.
No, I've had a lot of complaints. About the umpires.
See, it's just something that I never really notice. Like
in saying that, I don't think it's the umpires fault per se.
Yeah.
It's the constant changings of the interpretations of the rules and everything, and they're just getting it wrong this year.
I think there's a lot of people with you with that opinion. But for me personally, the umpires have just never been something I really notice when I'm watching footy. Like, a call goes against you and you notice it. You know it's there and you wish it didn't happen. But I think this is going to be something that comes in, doesn't make an awfully big amount of change for me as a fan, and I sit back and I go, I didn't really notice much difference.
I don't think it's going to make too much change. I don't think it's going to make too much change. I think the umpires are fit enough that they're not fatigued enough to be making bad calls because they're fatigued. Yeah. I don't think bad calls come from being fatigued.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
I don't think that's
they're generally... they're never in bad positions unless there are players in the way. Which
when they're caught out, or
being less fatigued is not going to fix that.
No,
this game is now a congested game. That's going to happen.
Yeah,
so I don't mind it. We'll see what happens, but I don't think it'll do anything.
Yeah,
if the umpires are fresher. After the games, and they're feeling better and everything, they're not as worn down and everything. Then by
maybe
all
it's
means,
good long term. Better long term. Yeah,
then I 100% am behind it.
Yeah. One thing I actually did have something I wanted to raise with you. Dane Beams,
yes,
could be gone for the season.
I think he'll be back for finals.
Okay,
he's gone for 3 months.
Gone for a lengthy period of time.
Yeah.
It opens the door for someone like Braden Sire to come in,
or
even Isaac Quainer was on their ins list
this week. I think Sire's the preferred choice.
He's the main guy. Yeah. He's been the outstanding one in the twos and probably
Dane Beams took his position in the team.
Yeah, and that was going to be my question to you is, was the Dane Beams trade... I don't want to say it was a bad trade because you make that trade every time you can because they didn't actually cough up that much out.
No.
A future first rounder was the most valuable asset they coughed up in that trade. So you make that trade. I don't want you to argue that it was a bad trade, but I want you to argue, was it a necessary trade when you had they've got really good kids that have been coming through and they've developed them really well. They got another one in Sire.
Yeah.
They got guys like that.
The thing is this is Sire's second season. So last season was his first season.
Yeah.
Dane Beams is that extra pole. And you could see it in his first few games.
Yeah.
You could tell there was something not quite right after his first 2 games to his form. If he comes back in finals and he is firing,
then clearly necessary.
Yeah.
Because
he's not going to be there just this year.
Yeah. No,
he'll be there for a few years.
Yeah.
It's definitely. If that trade comes up, you're taking it.
You make it every time, 100%. But it did plague my mind where I was kind of like, he was a guy that came in at a later age to a midfield that had some really good kids coming through, kicked Sire out of the team and then clogged up the minutes of Tom Phillips, which I thought was a little... Yeah, I just didn't know if I agreed with the trade or not.
No, I do, and I'll give you the reason why. Scott Pendlebury will be going over the next couple of seasons. Let's be fair. And so Dane Beams is a bit of a stopgap for that.
Yeah.
Right? Whilst these guys like Sire and Quainer are ready.
Yes.
Once they're ready, Pendlebury's probably gone. Beams is probably gone, if not on the way out. And
I think so.
Ready-made players are ready to go. So there's no drop-off in the midfield.
Yeah.
They're just they're good and to take up that slack.
And I guess they feel like they're a team that just needed to take one more step forward.
Yeah.
They lost a premiership. You go out and get a really quality player. It happens. Yeah.
Now, one last thing I want to go through before we jump into the games.
Yep.
Was AFL.com.au released, which is something I wanted to actually go through and do a video on, but I just didn't get the time to do. And I was like, damn it, that's not my idea. The draw.
You've got bazillion riders.
They've gone through and reevaluated how easy and how difficult the draw has been for all 18 teams.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to see which teams have the easiest and the hardest draws so far, as well as what is to be assessed as potentially the hardest and easiest draws for the rest of the season.
It's always super interesting when these come out because the fixtures are predicated around who you're going to get an easy draw, who's going to get an easy draw and a hard draw what last year's results were. So when you bring these into perspective, they're super interesting to read.
I want to go through the top 4 of each category with you, okay? The easiest draw so far of the year has been given to Port Adelaide first, GWS second, Crows third, and Geelong as having the 4th easiest draw.
Right.
Okay.
All teams in the top 8.
All teams in the top 8, and we're expected to be thereabouts.
Yes. Yeah.
Which, interesting. Geelong has the 4th easiest one there, and they're on the top of the ladder.
Yeah.
Whereas the other 3, I suppose GWS is in second, but Port and Crows are not. They're not quite there. The hardest draw so far this year, though, is very interesting to me. West Coast comes in at the hardest draw so far.
That is interesting.
Melbourne second hardest, Sydney third, Gold Coast fourth. So Melbourne, Sydney, Gold Coast, all languishing down the bottom end of the ladder.
Where you expect them to be with
the hardest draw. But West Coast with the hardest draw so far, and yet still sitting in fourth position.
Yeah.
That's got to be a positive thing for their premiership defence.
It's huge. Their start must have been really rough because their last 5 weeks have come against... They've been teams that they've coasted past that haven't really been great teams. Were their first few weeks just super rough? Were they? I can't really go back that far.
Yeah, so their first week was Brisbane.
Yeah, okay.
Which they lost horribly. Yeah. Then Collingwood, who they beat.
That's
GWS, who they beat. And then they beat someone else.
Fremantle. They played Fremantle.
So they went 3 in a row.
So that's all teams that are floating.
And then they lost to Geelong. And they also lost to someone else. They lost 3 in a row as well. And then they've been on their 5-win streak at the moment.
Yeah.
However, the draw from here on until the end of the season, so the next 11, 12 games, right? Hawks have the hardest draw from here on out, which probably puts a line through them for finals, which we kind of deduced that.
Yeah.
Port have the second hardest draw. Coming from the easiest to draw.
Excellent.
Bulldogs and then North.
Yeah, okay.
That's tough on them.
Yeah, that's tough.
Here's where it gets interesting, though. The easiest draw for the remainder of the year. The Saints, Geelong. So coming from the 4th easiest draw, they now move up to the 2nd easiest draw.
Wow.
So they're a top lock.
Yeah.
You have to say. Collingwood and Brisbane. So that actually helps Collingwood out.
So it was the Saints in number 1 there. Okay.
Saints number 1 with the easiest. Okay. Collingwood with 3rd. So they're a pretty good chance to still get top 4. And Brisbane. They're probably a good chance to fight for the top 4 as well. And it should be noted that West Coast is actually sitting in 5th, but I didn't write that
down. That's super interesting because we actually went through the draws for all of those sides by St Kilda a few weeks ago. And we had all of them finishing off quite strong. So we knew that it was going to be quite easy for them. Funnily enough, I did the Bulldogs during the week for our mid-season reviews, and I had them maybe winning 2 more games for the year. Theirs
and they've
rough.
got they're 3rd.
Theirs is tough. It sort of speaks to where Geelong is.
Does it force you to question Geelong's credentials based on the information that they have probably the easiest draw this year?
Yeah, absolutely. And they've been really healthy.
Geelong. So far.
They've had their injuries. They haven't been superb.
No, they've had one.
But when Dangerfield goes down, Ablett came back in. And they kind of just swapped them and things like that. They've been healthy. They've had a good draw. It does. It makes me think when finals come around, how good are you going to be? And that's when we're going to find out.
Is it going to hurt them?
The fact that
they've played the good teams at home.
Yeah.
Which could, mind you, in saying that, if they finish top spot, they're going to be playing at home if not the MCG anyway.
And they can only beat
games.
They can only beat who's in front of them, but
it's true. But
it forces you to question it, doesn't it? It forces
only marginally, I think.
Yeah, not a whole heap. They're still a very good team, and they still know exactly what they're doing. But
my concern for them, I suppose, with Geelong is they're unable to shake a team, even the bottom teams, until the last quarter.
Yeah, they're really pushed by Gold Coast, pushed by Sydney.
And that's probably a slightly concerning thing as well.
I'm waiting for them to get a team that loves to bring pressure and just see how they go from there. Bring them even Fremantle. I'm waiting for them to play Fremantle, and I really want to see how that game turns out.
It's a good segue, actually, into the first match of the round, because...
It certainly is.
The team that they're up against on Friday night is a team that does love to pressure and has been renowned for the last couple of years for pressure. And they bring in some players that apply pressure.
Yes, they do.
Friday night footy is Richmond versus Geelong at the MCG. Richmond bring in Rioli, Townsend, Graham, and Naish for his debut.
That's right.
Geelong bring in Ablett and Stanley.
Yes. Although rough outs for Richmond. Ellis and Asprey, they lose a bit of, a lot of defence out of that. Broad and Bolton both drop, so you can't call those rough outs. It's Geelong's best test for us to see where Geelong are at. Yes. I think so far.
With regards to, exactly as you're saying, responding to pressure.
Yeah, and I don't think Richmond's loss to North is something that actually fazed them too much. I don't really know. Maybe it is because it was quite an alarming loss when you look at how the game played out.
Yeah, after half time.
But But I just, for something, I was watching it and I wasn't too shaken by it. I think North are a better team than their record lets on.
They've been better in recent weeks.
Yeah,
their first month wasn't great, but since then they've been better. Yes, I agree.
One thing that does interest me for this game is it's just a matter of like Tom Lynch and Tom Hawkins actually, like for me they're kind of similar. I watch the way they play and their movements and where they move to, and they're kind of similar. And it's just.
I think Hawkins is a smarter player.
Yeah, and I think whichever one gets a hold of the opposing defense is going to have a bit of a birthday. I mean, who goes to Hawkins? Is it going to be Grimes, is it?
It'd have to be.
It'd have to be because Asprey's gone.
They don't have any other tall defenders,
and
really.
So who goes to Lynch in the Geelong defence? Is it Henry's been playing?
Yeah, it could be Blicavs as well. Yeah. Could be Taylor.
Yeah,
could be a number of.
So they get and they might tackle it that way with a team effort.
Yeah, they might just rotate players through him.
I'm going to go with Geelong to win.
Yep,
but that's really iffy, and I'm avoiding that as my certainty. I don't want to go anywhere near that with my certainty.
Yeah, I tell you what. I'm just looking at the other games because I haven't actually looked at the other games to go what's 50-50.
Yeah, I mean, are we going Adelaide GWS might be 50-50.
Carlton Brisbane could be 50-50 with a new coach.
Yeah.
That's at Marvel. Brisbane typically haven't played well at Marvel this year. Gold Coast North Melbourne up at Metricon could be 50-50. Adelaide GWS could be 50-50. Sydney West Coast based on reputation could be a 50-50.
Yeah.
Collingwood, Melbourne, again, it feels like a 50-50 this way. It feels like all of the games are...
Are we just going to go open slather?
Yeah, we might have to.
I mean, we're only given 6 games. It's rough.
But I would not be comfortable tipping any one team over the other in any of these games.
Yeah.
Whereas normally you go, nah, it's... Definitely this team.
Yeah,
I don't feel confident in
that. No, the way the situation
is comfortable.
I never feel comfortable making a certainty.
Making a certainty. Okay, I tell you what I'm going to do.
You're due for a loss too.
Going. It's funny because Hi X, who isn't here today, or at least he hasn't said g'day today, he goes against my certainty every week. And he came into our Discord over the weekend, halfway through Adelaide losing, and he was like, nah, it's not happening. But after the game, I was like, mate, don't doubt me, boys.
You've got to be due.
Haven't got one wrong yet.
Got to be due.
I'm going to go with I'm going to make this game my certainty, so we'll find out very early on in the weekend whether I've got it or not.
All right.
I am...
You don't sound so certain.
I'm going to go with Richmond. Certainty.
All right.
Richmond take down Geelong.
And I'm tipping Geelong, staying away from that as my certainty, which moves us on to game 2 of the round. Carlton v Brisbane. We're at Marvel Stadium on Saturday at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Time.
Yes.
Interesting selection for Carlton. Not so interesting for Brisbane. Brisbane's got Ian Allison out keys.
Yeah.
Carlton brings in Thomas, Cade Simpson, Lockie O'Brien, Mitch McGovern.
Yep.
They come back.
Good ins.
So good ins. Fasolo dropped, Kennedy dropped, and Lang and Stocker also go out.
Disappointing with Kennedy being dropped.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing with Kennedy. I'm a little perplexed.
I'm very interested to see how Carlton come into this game.
Yeah.
One of the biggest problems with Carlton this year have been their 2 key forwards, or 3 key forwards.
Yeah.
McGovern, Kerno, and Mackay are never stationed in the 50. They all push up to the wing, all at the same time push up to the wing to get the kick out. They get the ball, and then they turn and, there's Gibbons.
Yeah.
What are we going to do now?
Change
of coach. We've got and this is going to be very interesting.
This is where it becomes super interesting.
Teague, the forward coach,
who
is in charge of these guys doing those positions and maneuvers, does he now change it so that they have a target to kick to, which they should, because all 3 of those targets are really good contested marks.
Yeah.
Or does he stick with the same game plan that is very clearly not working? Because it looks like they're just trying to run the ball in, but they can't. They suck at it.
And that's his biggest question too. When you take over halfway through a season, do I blow up everything the players have learned? Because clearly it doesn't work. Do I blow it up and make them start again mid-season? Or do I just kind of tweak it a bit and sort of show them the light as to where they should go, or where he at least thinks they should go?
I would say to any one player, so... it's McGovern's turn, for 5 minutes. It's Mackay's turn for 5 minutes. It's Curno's turn for 5 minutes. You are not to leave the forward 50. I mean, in saying that, you come probably to the back of the square or something, or to the centre square for the kickouts and stuff, and then you push back and do the double lead back and everything. But you are the deepest player.
Just wreak havoc. And wreak as much havoc as you can.
Because even if he can't grab the ball, guess who's going to be at his feet?
Yeah.
Gibbons and the small players and stuff like that.
Quality small players that they've got, Having said that, I just don't think Carlton's midfield is actually good as it is on paper. It's not in form at all. Cripps got towelled last week by Dylan Clark. I don't think he'll get towelled 2 weeks in a row.
No.
I don't think he's going to let that happen.
But he only gets towelled up against quick players.
But they're coming up against a very good midfield. I don't know if I'd rate Brisbane's midfield as overly quick, are they? I mean, Zorko,
I wouldn't imagine. No, they're clever and they're contested.
And clean.
Clean is an operative word there.
Yeah.
Quick, probably not so much.
Yeah.
Unless Cameron's running through.
Yeah. Rayner may give them some pace if he goes
possibly,
through there.
But he's very inconsistent. He's very inconsistent. He's either on or he's off, and when he's off, he's pretty bad.
Yeah, and when he's on, he's not particularly convincing for me. I don't think he lights the world on fire when he's on. Not yet. I'm gonna go with Brisbane because, and I'm gonna avoid this with my certainty like the plague, because last time I tipped him, I didn't know it at the time, but last time I tipped a certainty that happened to evolve around a coaching change. North Melbourne absolutely towelled up the Bulldogs and made me look silly.
I'm going to go with Carlton. They make changes to their game plan and they simplify the game plan and they play much better because of it.
Okay. All right.
Young players play better with a simple game plan. There they go.
I hope you're right, because Brisbane's one of those fringe teams. As a Fremantle supporter, at
the same time, I kind of hope I'm wrong, just to shove it up
the higher ups.
Yeah, because they said, we're going to win now.
Yeah.
Because they got rid of their coach.
Yeah.
That just screamed of...
And they just had no leg to stand on with that, so it would be nice to see Carlton get up.
With that. Next game on Saturday, though, let's keep going. Gold Coast at Metricon take on North Melbourne. Gold Coast bring in Brodie, Harbrow and Miller.
Yep.
And North Melbourne only bring in Durden.
I love Will Brodie. I really do. For the short stint that he had last year of really good games. It was like 6 good games or something like that.
Big unit, too.
And he just was getting like 30 touches. And
you look at him and he's like...
He picked 10 in the draft, you know? Yeah, he picked 10 in the draft. Took Miller and Harbrow, also really big ins for them. This is going to be an interesting game because McMillan and Durden swap for North, like Durden in, McMillan out. You don't lose a whole heap with McMillan going out. A bit of experience, but...
but Durden's not too bad.
Is that necessary against the young Suns?
Durden's not too bad either.
Yeah, I really like Durden. And the outs for Gold Coast being Holland, Smith, Schoenfeld and Bose. Bose is the only one that you lose that you're like, we really wanted to keep him in the 22.
Yeah.
Whereas you get 3 bona fide start. Well, Brodie's not actually a bona fide starter. He's just a guy you get. But Harbrow and Miller.
The ins outweigh the outs.
By a mile. And that's why I'm going to pick the Gold Coast in this game at Metricon.
I would go Gold Coast. If I hadn't been so quick on my certainty, I would have made this my certainty, actually.
Even though North are playing super good footy the last couple of weeks, Gold Coast defend Metricon really well. We've talked about that on the show before. North, as good as they've been in the last 2 weeks, they've never shown me anything to believe in them for a third straight week, so I don't know why I would give them the...
Besides thumping Richmond.
Yeah, but I don't understand...
They thumped Richmond.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, and I've said this kind of every week, since they've moved Zeeble back into the midfield from the forward line...
It's been super competitive.
It's completely changed their midfield dynamics.
Yeah, and it's opened up their forward line with a bit more pace too, so... Yeah. Look, wouldn't surprise me if North win this game at all. But I'm going to go with the Gold Coast because they protect Metricon quite well. The ins outweigh the outs. And that's basically what I base my argument on.
I agree.
So we move on. Game 4. Adelaide versus I was about to say Golden State.
This is Saturday night.
Greater Western Sydney. Adelaide versus Greater Western Sydney. Saturday night, Adelaide Oval, 7:10 p.m. Adelaide time. For Adelaide, in comes Hartigan, Crouch, Douglas.
Yep.
Out goes Bryce Gibbs for the third time this season. He's admitted again. What are they doing?
I don't understand.
I don't get this. And also joining him on the outs is Mackay and Greenwood, who are two good players. In for the Giants goes Taylor and Williams. Out Whitfield, Keith. Whitfield going out. Yeah, you're cringing for your fantasy team?
Yeah, for a month. I've been trying to rack my brain as to what I do with him.
Yeah,
and who I trade him to. But, it's tough for him. They thought he would only had a stinger on the AC. Turns out he's broken his collarbone.
Yeah, that sucks. And probably actually robs him of an Australian berth because he might just not have played enough footy to get a gong ahead of some other players.
Possibly, but
he could come back and light it up.
His position, though, is probably the same as you'd say maybe Hearn.
Yeah.
Could you argue that Whitfield's been playing better than Hearn?
You could, but if he misses this amount of time, does it
because Hearn's also missing this weekend, but he's only missing this weekend. Yeah. It's a very light hamstring.
I haven't had to think about it too much, but I'm sure there's some other guys around the AFL. Like Jake Lloyd's probably arguably going to take one of those spots.
See, I don't know about that. I don't
agree with that.
Jake Lloyd has been good in fantasy this year, but he's butchered the ball until the last 3 weeks. He's been good for the last 3 weeks, but before that he just butchered the ball.
The other one I thought could take it, but he needs to continue his form because he had a slow start, is Nathan Wilson. I thought could actually come in and take that spot if he keeps playing the way he's playing.
Yeah.
But he would need to do it for every single game. He can't afford lumps.
No, so. I wouldn't. I couldn't see Wilson being in the AA discussion at the end.
No, maybe the 40-man squad. Maybe if he keeps playing the way he's playing, because he's been really good the last 3 weeks, but he had a slow start. Let's talk Bryce Gibbs, because I don't.
Why is he being dropped?
What's going on?
What's he doing wrong?
They say it's his defensive work. And then they say he doesn't put enough pressure on, but then they bring him back and they say the same thing and they drop him. And then they bring him back and they say the same thing and now they drop him again. Make up your mind.
Yeah, I don't understand the reasoning. Because you don't bring Bryce Gibbs into your team for defensive pressure.
No, you don't.
You bring him for the outside class.
If you're sitting there making him work his ass off defensively, I think that's on the coach. Just give him the ball and let him show you his class. And I really disagree with what Adelaide is doing, and that is with Bryce Gibbs.
They seem to be a team who don't know what to do.
They're in scramble mode, hey? They shouldn't have won that game last week against Melbourne.
Tex Walker.
That was peak scramble.
Tex Walker should not be in this team.
No. And if I'm Bryce Gibbs, I'm looking at guys like Tex Walker, and I know they're different positions, but I'm looking at him going
I'm not even looking at the positions. I'm going, you've dropped Jenkins for the exact same form or worse. Tex is in worse form than what Jenkins was in.
Unfortunately, he's their captain, and they're not going to drop him. That's all that's saving him.
That's the problem.
That's got to be all that's saving him, and those reasons are why I don't like Adelaide at the moment.
This is a game where I would go... Tex goes to the coach and says, I'm dropping myself. I need to find form.
Yeah. Do a David Myers.
That's the perfect reason when you're not looking to retire or anything like that. To go, look, I'm not performing. Someone else can come in who may be performing better because it's,
Couldn't agree more. And
my position is not infallible just because I'm the captain.
Yeah.
And that is such a team
Put that
uniting thing to do for a captain to lead that way. And unfortunately, it's not happening. And I doubt the Crows.
This is why I'm going to go GWS as my certainty.
Yeah, I think GWS are a tighter unit.
It's at Adelaide Oval, which kind of makes me go, is GWS going to travel well enough?
And the only thing is GWS have not... I don't think they've won a single game outside of against Sydney. In front of a crowd more than 30,000 people.
Yeah.
Which this will draw.
Did they beat Melbourne in front of a crowd of more than 30,000? Or did they not get 30,000?
I don't know how many people were there.
Okay.
So I'm actually saying
that's the only one that would be.
I'm saying this statistic based on looking at it a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I should make that.
But that's the only game that could have broken that.
That's the only game that could have broken that outside of the Sydney derbies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they certainly didn't get 30,000 people to their game against Gold Coast last week. But I'm going to go them as my certainty. Just for the fact I just can't stand Adelaide and what they're doing. So I'm
GWS certainty.
Yeah, they're my certainty, yeah. To beat Adelaide, they are my certainty.
Adelaide, all right, there you go. Next game, Sunday, only Sunday game. Sydney takes on West Coast at the SCG. Now, these should be noted.
I was just going to put you up. I think that's a Saturday game, is it?
No.
Sunday. Oh, no, sorry. I'm reading the wrong part of my notes.
We've got Monday as well. So
I'm reading the wrong part of my notes. Please go on.
Yeah, this is the only Sunday game. Sydney versus West Coast at the SCG. Now, this is extended benches, so bear with us. Sydney bring in Cameron, Thurlow, Rose, Rowbottom, and Stoddart. And West Coast brings in Hickey, Nelson, Rotham, Cameron, Archie, and Smith.
Jared Cameron would be a debutant, wouldn't he?
He would be a debutant if he makes his debut, yes.
Do you know much about him? Can you give us much on him? Because I don't know too much on him.
No, not really. He's Charlie Cameron's younger brother.
Yeah.
That's about the extent
Bit of a flash machine or something?
Yeah. So if he's coming in, he's coming into the forward line.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously, Hearn is out. I don't know of any of their other outs because I don't write.
Oscar Allen's the only one that they wrote
He's been omitted, which is
maybe a rest thing.
Possibly, but coming into the bye, you rest him over the bye, and he's been playing well.
Yeah, he has been.
I mean, don't get me wrong, he's probably been down. I wouldn't even say he's been down based on previous. I think he's still been playing consistently well.
It's a weird one, but they're kind of spoiled for choice in regard. Maybe they feel if they bring in Hickey,
I think they're undecided.
They're tall.
Possibly. I think they're undecided as to who they bring in for Hearn, either Nelson or Rotham. I think Rotham's good.
I
quite liked him earlier in the year, and I think he suits that position a bit better. Archie's been killing it in the waffle.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of forced himself to be picked.
Yeah. I think Rotham is the guy they want to go with because they know he's got the higher ceiling than guys like Archie and Nelson.
Yeah.
Whether they do that or they're actually threatened enough by Sydney to go, hey, at least we know what we're going to get from Nelson/Archie. Like, maybe. I don't know. It's a tricky one.
Yeah.
I'd bring in Rotham just to see what he can do. It's quite a good game to bring him in and see what he can do and just
and he was in earlier on in the year and he held his own pretty well as well. So he knows he can perform at the level if he needs to.
What do you make of the venue? Because we talked about them not winning for 20 years or whatever.
I do think West Coast
statistically and analytically. Is it effective to how West Coast plays? Or
the ground size 100%.
Yeah.
So if West Coast plays like Hawthorn did in their 3-peat.
Yeah.
You can't get around that.
Yeah.
There are obviously differences to it, but the main overall game style is very similar to the way that Hawthorn played at the SCG.
Yeah, I'd agree with that,
Hawthorn struggled at the SCG as well.
Yeah, true.
Because of the smaller ground size, it's hard to control the ball by foot because there's just less space to open up and cut through by foot. It is very much a contested ball kind of ground, which is what Sydney have always been known for because they've adopted that play style to suit their home ground.
Yeah, of course.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
In saying that, Sydney still have a young team. Their contested ball and everything isn't as staple mark as what it used to be. West Coast has actually been pretty good over the last, since they're, during their 5 wins, it's been getting better and better and better and better.
They've sort of just used it as a platform, like, because they versed some of those mid-range teams and those bottom-feeding teams. They were just like, okay, we're just going to find form.
That's right.
And I think last week against the Dogs, they just went bang.
Yeah, they have. I do think West Coast breaks their 20-year hoodoo here.
I'm actually going to disagree with you. I'm going to go with Sydney, just because that's only history. I've changed my mind from the start of the show. I don't like seeing it broken. I want to see it stay alive.
History is made to be broken.
And I think Shannon Hearn going out's got to have some effect.
It does hurt them. But I do think their defence is more than capable. Yeah. I mean, they've got players like McGovern and Schofield down there to navigate and everything.
Yeah, like going out on a limb here for sure, but I'm going to go with the Swans.
Yep, you are a silly man. Let's go through the last game.
We've got Collingwood in Melbourne, Monday, MCG, Queen's birthday, 3:20 p.m. Melbourne time.
Yep.
Collingwood in Crocker, Sire, Quainer, Cox and Dacos. And out goes Dane Beams with the injury that we talked about earlier. In for Melbourne, and both sides have really interesting ins and outs. So in for Melbourne is Neil Bullen, Bruce, Salem, Hoare, and then the big two are Lever and May.
Yeah.
So out goes Kennedy Harris and Oscar McDonald, who I think Melbourne fans have been crying out for Oscar McDonald to be dropped for a while.
Yeah. I think the only thing he's actually done pretty well over the last few weeks was tackle Petruccelli.
Yeah. That was Frost.
Or was it Frost?
That was Frost.
Oh, I thought it was.
So he hasn't even done one good thing.
No, he's been pretty poor. Who takes his spot? Clearly, May and Lever coming in.
Yeah, they're coming in.
I'm very interested to see Lever because Lever is supposed to be the next McGovern.
Yeah.
Right? That contested floating mark. When he started at Melbourne, he wasn't quite that because he was playing more of a contested one-on-one defender as opposed to a freelancing defender. However, with May in the team, he can go back to his natural game. I'm very interested to see. I mean, it's not going to happen in his first game, and I don't think May will be very impressive in his first game either.
They're probably both going to be a little underwhelming.
But I do think that they add a lot of stability to the back line.
I think so too. And what I'm interested to see is, outside of those two, what does this do for the man we just talked about, Sam Frost, who's really quick. He's tall, so he can play a key role. But he's super quick. Maybe he just feels a little more comfortable taking the game on and running off a little more.
I think May. So if Cox comes in, I think May goes to Cox.
Yeah.
I think Frost goes to Reed.
Yeah.
And he can play.
And then
Reed.
Lever.
And Lever is just floating.
Yeah.
Which is his game.
And he was perfect at that in his last season at Adelaide.
That's right.
Was he an All-Australian that season? He might have been.
No, McGovern tipped him out.
Yeah, that's right.
He's McGovern.
Yeah, but Lever was extremely.
He was in the 40-man squad, I think.
Yeah, he had to be because he was huge that year.
Well, like I said, he's supposed to be the next McGovern sort of thing.
So I think another one that I'm interested in flipping the script to Collingwood is to see. I think in the end it'll just be Sire for.
I think it'll be Sire. Yeah,
the change they're going to make. And maybe someone else comes out to fit Cox in because they really could have used him against Freo, and I think they were exposed.
They are much better structured because their forward line is structured around Cox in the way that he.
As much as De Goey's the best player in there, it's structured around the big guy.
Yeah. Well, De Goey plays at the feet of Cox.
Yeah.
Right? And you're not able to do that with Reed because he's not as combative as what Cox is.
Yeah.
That is one thing. Even if Cox is not playing very well, he is very combative and he will bring the ball to ground.
So would Reed be the one that just comes out for Cox, or would they keep him in?
I think
he played okay against Freo.
No, I think Collingwood are in a good enough position at the moment in terms of on the ladder that they can still experiment with them because now's the time to experiment and get it right for finals.
Yeah, ahead of that last 5-6 games of the season leading into the finals.
And as we discussed earlier, they've got one of the easiest draws in the back end of the year.
Yeah, very true. I'm really keen to see what Braden Sire can do because I was like everyone else, I was super impressed with him last season.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he just got punted out by a
better
powerhouse
unfortunately.
of the league. Yeah. And the other ins outside of Lever and May for Melbourne are really good. If Neil Bourne, Bruce, Salem and Hawke could literally all be in their best 22, I don't think they're going to bring all of them back in and make 6 changes.
Possibly not.
But
I do like the move of Bruce coming in because Grundy might not be playing on Monday. It should be said.
Yeah. What's he up in the air?
If Grundy doesn't play, Bruce doesn't come in. If Grundy does, then Bruce and Gawn working over Grundy could be the difference of the game here.
This may be why Cox is on the extended interchange with the Grundy thing hanging over.
It could be.
But yeah,
I still think you bring Cox in anyway.
I think you should anyway too. I agree with that. Bruce, though, for me, even if he's outside of the structure that they want to play, he's a real competitor. He's a bull. So I just think if you can get him in and really have a red hot crack at the contest with him, he gives you a little more of that. Like Gawn doesn't really go overly hard and compete. He's just kind of silky for a big guy.
No, he's clever in his positioning. But he's not a hard player.
Yeah. So
whereas Bruce is the exact opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
He's the next Mumford.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with the Pies.
I think the Pies will get up as well.
Yeah, I think the Pies get up. I don't think losing Beams, they don't lose anything. He had 14 touches last week. So
he's been pretty poor for the last 2 months.
Yeah, while he's been dealing with the injury.
While he's been in the team, he's been pretty poor.
Yeah.
For the last 2 months.
Buckley even said the axe was hanging over his head before the injury had come. Yeah. So for him to say that, shows that they're not going to be in any trouble with that. So I'm going to go the Pies.
Pies as well.
Yeah.
Let's go back to our starting questions. Charlie Dixon returns to the SANFL this weekend, so he comes back into the Port Adelaide side inevitably over the next coming weeks, provided he's not injured again, obviously.
Yeah.
If he comes back into the side, I want you to argue that not only do Port make the 8, but they become a premiership threat.
I think that's feasible. I think that's a feasible thing to say, and I think like we point to you had them on the hardest run home, didn't you? Second hardest run home.
Yes.
So they need him. You know, not only
considering they've had the easiest run so far.
Yeah,
they're sitting in 8th.
Yeah, with a 6-5 record. So not only does he come in at a time where it's like, anytime he comes in, they need him. You know, because when they don't have him, they need him because he's a really good player.
Yeah.
But I think he actually does take them to the next level, just structure-wise as to what they can do around him. Like, who's playing key forward for him at the moment? They're just rotating Lysette and Ryder with Westhoff, aren't they?
Yeah, pretty much.
You just got 2 ruckmen and a
well, you have 2 ruckmen. Ryder's been predominantly playing forward as opposed to ruck.
And they're not terrible options.
Because Ryder is a natural forward.
And he's quite good at the position, and there's nothing to say that either of those guys, I think Lysette, when he goes forward, can still be effective. But I just think you bring Dixon in, you know who your guy is, you just kick to him, you let guys like Robbie Gray at his feet or Sam Gray, who's been in great touch this season. I think structurally wise, like talent wise, it's clearly a boost for them, but structure wise, for them to have a focal point where they're just like, that's our guy.
Yeah.
Like that's the guy we're kicking to, and we don't care what defender you've got on him. We're just going to go to him, and at his feet, we know we've got capable players. Connor Rosie's going to absolutely really benefit from having Charlie Dixon in the side. So I think it takes them. You know, realistically, do I think it takes them to being a premiership contender? Probably not. But where they're entering a really hard stretch, they're going to need him.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I think he's going to come through for him. Yeah.
I don't think
so.
It is because I think Port Adelaide's issues stem more than just the forward. Their forward line is actually performing pretty well.
Yeah.
It's actually quite consistent in generating scores.
Yeah, they're still Charlie Dixon, a huge one against Saints.
Don't get me wrong, Charlie Dixon does add structure, like you said. But if he is taking grabs, he's also missing goals. He's a horrible shot goal. And he actually, I think he takes scoring away from Port Adelaide. I think a lot of the problems that Port Adelaide have at the moment are in their midfield, not their forward line. So bringing in a forward doesn't necessarily... In fact, I think it even further detriments their forward line because it then just gives them a target to bomb it in as opposed to hit up the leading forward.
Yeah, which can
is what
be
they
detrimental.
have been doing.
Yeah.
So I love Charlie Dixon as a player. I think he's actually a fantastic player. I think he plays... the game exactly how you want a forward to play.
I think if you got him injury free for a year and he kicks straight, you're looking at one of the premier forwards of the competition.
100%, 100%. But this year they have other issues to fix before the forward line.
Yeah, fair call. Now for you need to tell me why on earth would Ross Lyon consider the Carlton vacancy ahead of his current digs at Fremantle? Again, to re-stress. We don't actually think this is
no, and
but we're trying to make an argument because I mean it's a hot topic.
Personal opinion aside, right? Let's make a case for why Lyon goes. Okay,
yeah.
If you actually have a look at Carlton's list, it's not a bad list.
No,
it's probably only about 1, maybe 2 years away from being a very, very competitive list. You've got Cripps in the middle. You've got you've got Walsh in there as well. You've got a whole bunch of other midfielders and young midfielders that are running through there.
Yeah,
as well as still being drafted. Their forward line will be elite.
Yeah.
You got Curnow,
when they get
you've got
right,
Mackay, you've got McGovern up there. You've also got a host of smaller players around at their feet as well. And their back line will be better over the course of, over the long run as well. Wiedering will develop. And Wiedering needs to play and I harp on about this all the time, Wiedering needs to play like McGovern or Lever.
Without doubt.
And Liam Jones needs to be bunted out of that team.
He needs to be playing VFL.
And I like Casbolt in the back line.
So do I.
I think he's more serviceable than Liam Jones. I think he can play the key defensive post better than Liam Jones.
Yeah.
But like Liam Jones, his use of the footy is poor.
Yeah.
But what he makes up for with his contested ability compared to Liam Jones, and they probably have the same output with regards to their disposals.
Yeah.
I would leave him and I would dump Liam Jones.
Yeah.
There is also a factor of moving back home. for Ross Lyon.
So off the field,
which is an off-field thing.
Yeah.
He's obviously got a lot of guy. He's got a lot of business ventures down in Melbourne and everything as well. I believe
he owns a pub with Stephen Silvani, which could have been what they're talking about at lunch. So there are a lot of factors to consider. If he was to bring his team to Carlton and actually develop it in his own way, immediately Carlton become much better. I think it gives them an identity. Ross Lyon's got an identity as a coach. People know he's tough. He's got a defensive game plan. I just feel like they're lacking identity at the moment.
Yeah. But in saying that, my personal opinion is Fremantle is now the only list that he's ever actually built.
Yeah.
He would be stupid to leave it.
Yeah, and that's why I'm going to say that he wouldn't leave it. He's emotionally invested in Fremantle at the moment.
Yeah, I think this is the first time we've ever seen Russ Lyon be emotional.
I've never seen him. I mean, like, a lot was made of him getting down on the boundary line after the Lions win and giving Brad Hill a bit of a kiss and hugging his players and things like that. Not much was made of, I think it was Walters taking a mark against Collingwood or something happened against Collingwood that put Freo up, and he was really active in the box. And this is a guy who's not a coach who's not really active in the box. He's sort of whatever. I'm analytical. I take by the numbers and I just crunch them and see what I can do.
What is confidence?
Yeah, he was super emotionally invested in the last 2 wins, and I think it's because, like you said, he's built his own lists now. Like he's got kids that he's brought through from the get-go. I mean, Fife is one of them. Fife only played 2 years that are not under Ross Lyon.
Yeah.
So, he's not leaving Freo, I don't think.
No, I wouldn't imagine so.
And Freo don't want him
to. If anything, one of the talking points that came out of that particular meeting was potentially bringing Silvani to Freo as a list manager.
Could be the other way around, because Fremantle's looking for one. I mean, since Carlton took theirs in Brad Lloyd, I don't know who the list manager is.
I don't know.
And Peter Bell might just actually be taking on the role at this point.
I think he's having a large say in things. Yes.
Yeah. But no, Ross Lyon stays for mine. Can't see him going anyway.
Well, guys, that's our episode this week. It's pretty.
We're on time. We're close to on time.
Just over. So well, to be fair, we were 3 games less. So really, we should have been even better than that. But oh well,
that's fine. We got 3 weeks.
We're getting there. There. More content for you guys to watch, I suppose. Anyway, so can't complain with that too much. Thank you very much for watching. If you do like the stream and or video, depending on how you're watching it, make sure you do leave a big thumbs up. It means a lot to us and it helps grow the brand.
Absolutely. Ring that bell for notifications.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe, ring the bell for when we do come out with new episodes and new content. We are still doing our mid-season reviews. Now, if you haven't checked them out before, we've got the 6 buy clubs this week. We've already done the reviews for those.
Yeah.
And we'll be doing next week's buy round teams next week and then the following week as well. So we're going to be doing all 18 clubs over the buys.
Plenty to watch.
Plenty of content to come out for you guys to enjoy. Let us know whether you agree or disagree with a lot of the stuff that we're saying as well, because we do get a lot of things wrong. Yeah. Obviously.
My certainties for one.
Yeah. And also make sure that you come check us out on Discord and chat with us throughout the week over the course of games. We'll have match threads and stuff like that as well. It's pretty interesting to watch Joel self-destruct in Adelaide games. It's brilliant to watch. You'll get a giggle out of it. I promise you. And that's us for this week. It's been a good week.
So thanks for watching, and this has been your AFL Access.